A true and faithful relation of what passed for many years between Dr. D and some spirits, 1659, Tuesday, June 18th, 1583 of the Vulgar Era, Ette Meridium Kirkut 9. D. As I prayed first and declared, are attending this day, the promise of God to be performed, and so on. Galva said, Are 4 hours yet to come? And I will be ready. Are the works of wisdom secret until I have ascended this hill? Is the harvest ready when the corn is ripe? Are the laborers ready when their instruments are prepared? I have said, all wisdom is reckoned by the eternal will until it be said, and there is no action tolerable. When the sun shineth, I will appear amongst you. When it is said, Come, lo, I am ready. The days of your fathers were blessed, but the hour when this book shall be written shall be sanctified, yea, in the midst of intellectual understanding. For herein is the creation of Adam with his transgression, the dignity and wisdom he had, the error and horror wherein he was drowned. Yea, herein is the power spread of the highest working in all creatures. For as there is a particular soul, or fire inflaming unto every body, I mean reasonable, so there is an universal fire, and a general brightness giving general light unto them, which is but one, and shineth through the whole, yea, is measured equally unto everything from the beginning. The life of all things is here known, the reward of death to those that are rewarded for life. None are rewarded but according to their deserts, of which there are two kinds. These are rewarded with the death for their wickedness. So are they rewarded with life for their constant living. Amongst the angels there may be errors, and sin may make them fall from the brightness of their glory. Remember, angel in English both refers to the jinn and the malaika. But to the soul of man, being once glorified, sin is utterly, yea, most largely opposite. Neither shall their dignity ever be lost, stained, or defaced. That is, obtained here with the works of righteousness and true wisdom, whatsoever hath been from the beginning, since it was said in divine determination, be it done, is here enclosed. Therefore should this day be hallowed and sanctified before the Lord by you. For if the prophets did worship this day of his ascension, much more also you, which have tasted of the first, shall now taste of the secrets of his judgment. Glorify his coming. But with you Satan is busy. His bristles stand up. His feathers are cast abroad. Therefore watch and pray. For those that go to banquets put on their upper garments. Amongst you, therefore, is no sound belief. Neither do you consider the scope of this blessedness. But such is the greatness and excellency of his foreknowledge, that he suffereth the enemy to carry a burden, yea, sometimes to preach upon a stage. For it is said, he shall triumph unto the end, and place himself here, as he would have done above. Neither shall he be thrust out of doors, till the end be determined. Therefore watch and pray, and look about with diligence, for those things shall be opened unto you, for which you have not been disclosed unto the holy ones. Oh, how hard a thing it is for flesh to continue in the works of justice. Yea, oh, how hard a thing it is for wisdom to be acquainted with the hotchpot of filthiness. Cleanse your garments, Lift up your hearts, and rent your faults in pieces, that there may be one heart with one consent, and unto one end, unto him which is one and the end of all things, and to him, and for in his truth, and for the greatness of his mercies, to whom be praise forever. And D said, Amen. Edward Kelly said, All the while she spake, there came a bright beam from the mystical stone to the body of her, and at the end she mounted upward and disappeared. D said, We set up the hourglasses to measure 4 hours justly after this answer and instructions. Tuesday after dinner, about 1 of the clock, and a half of the hours expired, we attended the mercy of the highest. D said, at a great gladsome shining of the sun, whereas it had not shined but a little, and constantly ever since his last word, when appeared on the corner of the green silk Sarseneo by the mystical stone, she was like a woman as Galba in the face, but her apparel was a man's gown, furred with foins, or as a gentlewoman do wear upon gowns. He said, Upon the diversity of your apparel, we were to ask whether you be Galba or not, or have you also, as I have done, put on your holiday clothes. Galba said, Fear God. She steppeth forward 1 step. Galba says, My garment, called Hawksmarch, which in your speech is called, oh, that's lost, okay. He says, Instium sapientia est tibor domini. We acknowledge it to be an old and a true lesson, and also the first step of the pathway to felicity. Galva said, What is feet? F-E-A-T. So, D says, oh, fear. Okay. It's smudge, sorry. What is fear? D says, fear is of 2 sorts. One is called firalis, and the other servilis. Galva says, Unto the just, all fear is joy, and therefore the beginning and entrance into quietness, true quietness, and rest is wisdom. For the mind that knoweth hath the greatest rest and quietness. The daughter of despair unto the wicked is fear. This fear is the first that accuseth unto damnation. But he that is perfectly wise, or hath tasted of wisdom, knoweth the end, and his fear is of the thing that is done. This is the true fear of God, and when we fear sin, we do it because we hate it, and we study to do good. It is a token of our fear, and in that it is a token we fear him, whom we love, and for whose honor we study to do well. This is all that may be said of lively and unlively fear. Touching the book, it shall be called Loga, or Laga, which in your language signifieth speech from God, right after this sort. Loagaeth, or Loagaeth. It is to be sounded Loga. This word is of great signification, I mean in respect of the profoundness thereof. The first leaf, as you call it, is the last of the book, and as the first leaf is a hotchpot, without order, so it signifieth a disorder of the world, and is the speech of that disorder a prophecy. Write the book after your order backwards, but alter not the form of the letters. I speak in respect of the places. So right to left is the way to write Enochian. The transliteration, okay, we see it in English letters left to right, but a lot of confusion about that, but this is just one of the places that makes that clear. The title of the book, and D says, I understand not this unless it be the first leaf, being indeed the last, is of the wicked hellish one. And so on, vita post fetus. Okay. D says, now a beam shooteth through him from the stone, so through his head, and out of his mouth, and his face being from Edward Kelly toward D. Galva said, write the 49. You have but 48 already. Write the first and paper apart. Loagaeth fing lovebertnuk larzidoks Nirhamzilb Adnor, and now the C's appear. Don Kalarmors Herobra Ixeverzidnyep Tayep Kiemvani Tirmak Lindix Norzandox. I guess the second word could be sieg. Sieg or sag. Loagath, seg, lave, Bertnik, Larzed, Dox, Ner, Habzilb, Adnor, Donka or Doncha, Larb, Vors, Herobra, Exever, Zednip, Ta Ip, Kimbana or Chimbana, Kermak or Chermach, Lendix, nor Zandox. So we notice there's none of this saying every letter Z. Well, Zod or Zed is a name for the letter Z, so it was just making clear that the character was that elsewhere. So Edward Kelly says that Galva, her head, is so on bright fire that it cannot be looked upon. The fire so sparkleth and glistereth as when an hot iron is smitten on an anvil, and especially pronouncing every word. It is to be noted also that upon the pronouncing of some words, the beasts and all creatures of the world, every one showed themselves in their kind and form, but notably all serpents, dragons, toads, and ugly and hideous shapes of beasts, which all made most ugly countenances in the manner assaulting Edward Kelly, but contrariwise coming to, and falling upon Galva. It is to be noticed also by degrees came the second beam and a third beam of light, and a Galva from the stone, and upon the three together appeared the third participating of the other two. Now, death. This is the formula. Well, not the formula. But so I was reciting it, and this was, this was done over the phone. And Death said that she had like a corn poster. I never saw the poster, but she had a corn poster on the wall, and it's like there was rippled or woven or some sort of circular sort of like gateway or something opened up, and that was like basically it, I guess. But like, yeah, it's like there was a ring around it, something. Appeared the third, producing the other two. The second beam came at the word larb, pronounced, when also frogs and serpents appeared, and etc. The third beam came upon the word exa, pronounce. Note also that the manner of the fiery brightness was such, and the grisly countenances of the monsters was so tedious and grievous and displeasant to Edward Kelly, that partly the very grief of his mind and body, and partly the suspecting the creatures to be no good creatures, neither such grievous sights necessary to be exhibited with the mysteries delivering unto us, had in manner forced him to leave off all. But I again, with a reasonable exhorting of him, and partly the providence and decree divine, wrought some mitigating of his grief and disquieting. Galva said, These are these 7. D said, Blessed and praised for ever be he who is one and the 3, whom the mighty ministers or governors do incessantly glorify. Galva said, Thy folly and weakness is great. God comfort thee. D said, He spoke to Edward Kelly for his excessive disquietness and suspecting of the verity or goodness of Galva. D notes that now the beams were all retired into the stone. Again, likewise, the creatures and vermin and ugly shaped beasts are all gone. We were willed also divers times to pray. At sundry pages of Edward Kelly, his grief and disquietness, sundry speeches were uttered by the spiritual creature, among which these noted. And Galva continued, He that is angry cannot see well. For him that is perverse, God turneth his face. The hindrance of the punishment is the mercy of God, which imputeth not sin unto them whom he hath chosen. Therefore be patient, and reconcile thyself to God. With the blessed reconciliation. Side note, the Church of Hermetic Sciences talks about the invocation, and you see the light and stuff like this. Before you engage yourself in the darker side, you want to connect to the light. You want to experience the light in the stone and all that stuff. Certainly, there's a psychedelic element of that. So I'm not saying that every. But yeah, I typically don't share that sort of stuff because it's like so. Maybe the first time it happened, like 20 years ago or something like that, I might have shared that sort of stuff recorded in my journal or something. But some stuff the first time, and then you're not really saying anything after that. But yeah, I make a practice with my rock collection to experience the rock mystically, you could say. But not experience the rock, but experience my spirituality in the presence of the rock. I don't know if that sounds weird, but Edward Kelly said, I do it with all humility and sincerity of mind, and beseech God to help me with this grace. For of myself I cannot do so. Yet I am Thomas Didymus. I will believe these things when I see the fruits of them. Thomas the twin, right? D said, he seemed yet again in doubt whether this creature and the rest partakers of this action were soundly good and void of all halting are abusing us. Edward Kelly says, how can you persuade me that you be no deluder? And then there's a bunch of arguments, and then some testimony and mention of the translation. So let's get into that. Galva said, I will prove it. By contrary, the servants of darkness have their garments stained. Their mouths stink of blasphemy and lies, but our garments are no such. Neither do our lips speak any untruth, and there we are of God. For whosoever is of the truth is of God. You know, like when people say phrases like Islamic and all that other stuff, they're not, you know, they're not saying that there's no good or truth in people or paths that don't say that they're Islamic or that sort of thing. And so, but the thing is that whatever good, whatever truth, it doesn't matter what the path is, it doesn't matter what the person is, it counts. Moreover, the devil is known by his works. For the Spirit of God controlleth them, and the Spirit of God agreeth with us, and useth no controlment against it, and therefore it is not doubtless and in one thing in one thing thou mayest know no differing from devils. The wicked spirits always abhor this word mercy. But it is the doctrine that we preach in respect towards you. We are not now than evil. But this way teacheth hardness, and is a stumbling block to the wicked. But the beauty of the castle is not able to be expressed. Happy are they which are covered with pearls of righteousness, and on a whole head there is a garland of godliness. This is sort of like the opposite of the Nokian key, right? For unto those belonging to the taste of the fountain of true wisdom, is it not written of this book, that it teacheth nature in all degrees? The judgment hereof is intellectual. And wash your feet, and follow me. He says, Lord, wash thou our feet, or else we shall not be clean. Galva said, How thou art, God knoweth. But comfort yourselves in this, that neither this testimony can perish, neither unto you can remain in any slavery. Quia vestra erit victoria in him and for him, to whom I leave you. He said, What shall I do with these 21 words now received? Galva says, There are only the words of the first leaf. He says, I pray, how shall I bestow them, or place them? Galva says, in them is the divinity of the Trinity. Now, John D. Salvo sounds like he got it right based on what we're going on about this, about what that 49th was. What's that? The mystery of our creation, the age of many years, and the conclusion of the world. And of me they are honored, but of the but of me not to be uttered, neither did I disclose them myself, for they are the beams of my understanding and the fountains from whence I water. He says, I beseech you, how shall I write these names in the first leaf? Galva says they are to be written in 5 tables. In every table has 21 letters. He says, how shall I place the 5 tables upon 2 sides? 3 in the first, and 2 in the second, or 1 in the first, and 4 in the second, or how else? Galva says, as thou seest cause. He says, shall I write them in letters of gold? Galva says, the writing hath been referred to thy discretion with colors, and such things as appertain to the writing thereof. Upon the first side write 3 tables, and on the second 2. How thus, says D, and he basically we see a series of dots. And Galva says, set them down, and I will direct thy judgment. When now? And Galva says, not now. She's gone. He says, Dio nostra sit laus honor eo gratiarum actio perennis. Amen. And perhaps I should give you spelling. Loagaeth. And then the second, SEG, and then LOVEI, and then BRTNC, then LARZED, then DOX, then NER, then HABZILB, then ADNOR, then DONCHA, then LARB, and LARB is in capital. So Loagaeth, Larzed, and Larb are capitalized. Then we have VORS, and then HIROBRA, and then EXI, then VR, then ZED, NIP, then TAIIP, then CHIMVANE, then CHERMACH, then LENDIX, then NOR, then ZANDOX. And so let's page 418 says, Dr. D's record of a strange thing, a very miracle in his judgment that happened in his presence and sight, to wit, books that had been burned by him are in his sight restored unto him, whole and entire, by spirits, etc., and so on. Now, psychologically, this can happen if you've witnessed the whole book, then, but don't per se rely on it. Don't destroy things and thinking that you're going to have this materialization in your vision that you may not be able to ever consciously recollect this stuff again. Action 135, page 419, Prince Rosenberg. You may see his titles, page 425, called and admitted into the society to be partakers of the mysteries and the executioner of the supposed gods, with a not plural but singular God's judgment, and so on. Prince Rosenberg, upon relation of what had been revealed, considering himself, accepts it, thankfully promises amendment and praise for the emperor, whose viceroy he was in Bohemia, and so on, that he may not be destroyed but repent rather. Page 421, a letter of his with his own hand to Dr. D with the same purpose. I think that's where we left off last time. My little bookmark is moved here. Dr. D's journey to Leipzig, his letter to Sir Francis Walsingham, secretary to Queen Elizabeth, wherein is observable his wonderful confidence and vain boasting, though not without some grounds, are a very enthusiast and deluded man, though it cannot be denied that some enthusiasts, upon less grounds, when God hath been pleased to give way, have had far better success. Page 424, 1 July. Ascanius. Julius. JUL. Ascanius. His letter to Dr. D, informing him of some reports and attempts against him in Germany as a necromancer. and so on. Well, you really kind of have to know that it's dealing with death, that they're like, it's like, only power, where you're going to get, but it's okay if it's through the saints. I guess that was that idea from the crowd. Oh, if it's from the official list of dead people, it's okay, but it doesn't work that way. I don't think that any of these things, at least these types of magic, you could say, require worshipping creations or imaginations or whatever. But page 425, a letter of Dr. Dees to Prince Rosenberg complaining of those reports and attempts by the nuncio and so on. 426, another to the emperor of the same subject, the sentence of banishment against Dr. D and so on in the German tongue. Page 429, Prince Rosenberg, his questions and petitions miraculously as was conceived, answered, a white paper being set upon the altar whilst Mass was said. The said paper, after Mass, was found all written, and as soon as copied out, all the letters of it vanished. A copy of the said paper are miraculous writing. Also page 429, some observation of Dr. Dees upon Francis Puccius, of whom before, his carriages, it's two C's, so I'm not sure what language we're using, his carriage, whereby it did appear unto him that the said Puccius did not deal truly and sincerely, which troubled Dr. D, who so much desired to be rid of him. And page 430, a conflict of his with said Puccius about their going to Rome and so on. Page 431, a paper delivered by Puccius to Dr. D as from the nuncio, by which they are absolved from all crimes, were they never so great and heinous, so they will go to Rome. Puccius his inconstancy about that paper. Dr. D's letter to said nuncio, or upon that occasion, were in, among other things, to tell him of those books that had been burned and were miraculously restored, and of many more burned, part of these records certainly, not yet referred, but promised and expected. The said letter, after some contest about it, commended to Puccius to be carried and delivered. More Puccius, his, not faithful dealing. Some heresies also of his. Some other things laid to his charge by Dr. D. Page 434.